Ramon Taveras versus Sidey. Ramon comes into the bantamweight bout nearly 5 times heavier at the weigh-ins compared to his opponent. Yes, he probably came in on fight day maybe as heavy as some featherweights. This is actually their rematch fight. Their first fight was in the Dana White Contender Series, and Sidey won that fight in the first round.
And he gives Sidey a smile! Sidey with the one kick.
It was a beautiful jab pulled to a 1-2. So one UFC debut ceremony later, they meet again. Ramon is extremely defensive in the first half of the round, mainly because he got knocked out in their first fight in the first round, so that makes sense. And also they're in open stance. So Ramon blocks so many attacks and timed patterned attacks because he is so much more spatially aware. Sidey comes in with a lead uppercut too with confidence. But this is where the learning curve happens, where Ramon was unorthodox. It almost looks like he baited the pocket's perimeter, if I could call it that, with the stance switch, and then switch back to his original stance to talk into a brutal body hook.
He uses against the boxing. Clips him with a counter right hook. His boxing, see how he circles to the left first, and then that sets up the angle that he wants to go on the other side to go to the weak side. It's really nice how he pulls him. He's pulling Sidey towards his left hand so that he can hit the weak side angle and go to the body or the left hand.
Just like Dom said, Ramon is circling to the left side already. So when Ramon slips and counters, he's already in position to throw a devastating punch to the head or to the body. And by that time, Sidey has no time to prepare for both. But here comes the reverse Uno card. When Ramon slowly circles out to the left again, Sidey throws a nice leg kick to shut down his footwork. And also, it fucking hurts, okay? Leg kicks fucking hurt. But in the last second of the round, Ramon does a sneaky play that everyone should try to implement. He faked a southpaw 2 to a body kick. And as his kick was landing, he placed it down instead of, retracting it, therefore going to orthodox. And from there, he rushed in with an orthodox 1 overhand.
Oh, late head count.
That is something you just don't do on the fly, okay? He was definitely training that shit in the gym on repeat. Round 2 begins and Sidey is pulling out his trump card. He goes to wrestle, but Ramon is defending the takedowns. But that's fine because in this game of sudden flash knockdowns, 1 nanosecond to freeze your opponent is definitely enough. And Sidey clips him good when Ramon had that tiny small brain fart. But Ramon still stood his ground where he got his flash knockdown back.
Nice 1-2.
That is nasty.
Beautiful.
Not gonna lie, the weight difference is kinda showing. Sidey is bloodied up, but it doesn't faze him at all. He is actually dealing more output once his face was painted red. He throws more significant shots, although some missing, but overall enough to win the round. Coming into the third, it gets very, very confusing. Sidey is doing so much more output where it looks so clear that he's winning. But in saying that, in every exchange, blood just squirts out of his face regardless. Also, Ramon just needs to jab just like every 5 seconds to make it look like it's an even fight once again. And it has so much power where just a small jab knocked the mouthguard out of Sidey.
Oh, jab that mouthpiece right out.
So it's a little bit confusing how the judges are going to score, the highest criteria, which is damage in this fight. The diminishing returns of low output but really strong attacks from the overweight fighter, or textbook output damage.
Salim Hanif scores the contest 29-28 for the winner by split decision, Ramon the Savage Cabrera.
Ramon had a great game plan in that fight. He fought completely different than the first fight. My biggest takeaway was just, take my time a little bit more. Don't rush things. I kind of got into that fire in that first round really, really quick. I just wanted to get right on him. Took some shots I didn't need to necessarily take that, broke my nose in the first round. Had a lot of blood to deal with, but I'm going to make those adjustments. I've made those adjustments in the gym, being a more patient, more calculated fighter. I know I have the dog in me. I can bring that out if needs to be, but I don't need to make every fight a firefight. I can be smart, find my KOs from the outside. I'm a long-rangey guy, so yeah, I've learned a lot from that fight.
Before we move on to the February entry, I feel like it is essential to tell you where I got this information from. This is all from the monthly reports they release onto the official UFC website. I need to reiterate that fight of the month is mostly measured by how much of a war it is. Yeah, it sounds weird, but it's just how it is. Because the monthly reports gives out other rewards as well, such as KO of the month, submission of the month, and they mention the runner-up for those as well. So they need to award the fight of the month at the end, which I guess they just measure its entertainment value and competitiveness. But in also saying that, Sean Strickland versus DDP happened that month as well. So I don't know how they measure this, to be honest, unless they really didn't like this Sean Strickland and DDP. Oh, for fuck's sake. I'll just recap what else happened during the month of January 2024. Magomed Ankalaev KO'd Johnny Walker, which was the KO of the month, and the submission of the month was Jasmine versus Cachoeira. And the breakout fighter of the month was Joshua Van, who TKO'd Felipe. Robert Whittaker versus Paulo Costa. For February 2024, we have Robert Whittaker versus Paulo Costa, a very hyped fight in the division where it was about time these two got booked. Regardless of where they are placed in the division, we all know that Paulo Costa versus Whittaker was going to be a UFC classic. Fight begins and they are already kickboxing. Despite it being middleweight, these two strikers know it will be a battle of speed. Not speed for output like Max Holloway style, it's more like middleweight is a good weight where any strike unprepared for will dictate the flow of the fight. Costa is definitely taking advantage of Whittaker's karate hands-down style with those head kicks.
Quick head kick.
Whittaker then decides to not play the kick game anymore and throws some hands. And his karate speed is a great base for this. Costa isn't really that defensive or that good when he's backing up. And Whittaker does a great body jab to a lead overhand to the face.
Beautiful jab.
If you look closely here, the key moments is Whittaker made Paulo Costa move back and push his hand down to parry the body jab, or at the very least, react to the body jab. And he also didn't see the lead overhand. To be honest, I don't know what it technically is, an overhand or a hook. I'm not too sure. But the key is you need to rotate your arm early so your opponent cannot even see the punch coming. Because Paulo Costa, if you slow it down, I'll screenshot it right here. He didn't even see it coming, like at all. And to emphasize it even more, I personally got some people good with it. Here is me using it against someone at my gym. And that one time I went to the official UFC gym in Japan and got them with the same move as well. But back to the fight. Whittaker is good at making it as a form of entry now. He knows he can close the space super good with something, and he experiments what to do next in the pocket. Costa still kept it competitive, where he was still able to block or counter or dodge what was coming next. At the end of round 1 is the first fight highlight, and I think you know what it is. The thing was, Whittaker was always the one closing the distance. So the last thing Whittaker thought when Costa was loading up was a long-ranged heel spinning kick to the fucking face.
Aside from that, scary moment in the first round, I don't know how you recovered from that, because that kick, his kicks all night were coming out of nowhere, bro. I couldn't even see it on the TV, right? It was just like anime style flash kick. It was at your head in the matter of seconds. After that moment, and you recovered, and you just kept going in with the jab, with the combos, you were destroying his calf. And I thought the commentators weren't doing you justice either. But that first round, I still thought you won it. Because aside from the last 10 seconds, whatever it was, you were dominating the whole round. I didn't understand.
I don't understand judging at all, but watching it back, I was piecing him up that round. Obviously, that kick was significant.
Yeah.
But I recovered, and it was like, I recovered. I don't know how that gives him the entire round.
Round 2 begins, and Costa is using what is reliable at the moment, his head kicks. Whittaker then uses his signature move, the 1-2 head kick, but it sadly fell short when the kick wasn't close enough, and Paulo Costa taunts. I think it's good to give code names for plays if you are a coach, but because I feel like even Paulo Costa can clearly hear the commands for the 1-2 head kick. But the rest of the round was kinda meh, nothing too interesting. Whittaker had more output and the game plan for him still worked. And Paulo Costa is tired now. Yes, he's built to tank basically anything, but the downside is that he needs to carry those giant muscles around throughout the whole fight. Now he starts focusing and narrows down to the important shots, losing the output game. And to prove my point even more, Costa even offered to throw down in round 3, which got the crowd going. But of course, rationally, Whittaker is already winning, so obviously fuck that. And that is basically the fight. Costa just didn't have enough ability to draw out any more trump cards to change the flow of the fight, just like he did in round 1. He just can't do those powerful, swift high kicks anymore, thus leading to the unanimous decision win.
Ladies and gentlemen, after 3 rounds, we go to the judges' scorecards for decision. The judges score the contest 29-28, 29-28, and 30-27 for the winner by unanimous decision, Robert the Reaper Whittaker!
It's a good fight, but in terms of being fight of the year, I don't think it comes close, but it was still very, very good and it still had its moments. You are probably first wondering, February 2024 was a banger month. Why is Robert Whittaker and Paulo Costa the winner of February? For example, Brian Ortega versus Yair was great, but that was submission of the month. Knockout of the month was Randy Brown versus Muslim Salikov. And how could I forget the most devastating fucking moment in modern UFC history? Yes, that happened in February as well, and I want to debate that was the KO of the month. But it was awarded the breakout performance of the month instead. Whatever that is, I'm not too sure. And the honorable mentions for that month was Carlos Prates versus Trevin Gills, Dan Ige versus Andre Fili, and Zhang Mingyang versus Brenson Ribeiro. Jack Della Maddalena versus Gilbert Burns. Fight begins and Gilbert just comes in like he just wasn't the underdog for the fight. Body kicking as soon as JDM switches to open stance and even connecting it with a takedown. Not only that, but he takes the back, which is interesting for the first minute of the fight. But if you know JDM already, he is really, really good at scrambling. I feel like I'm downplaying JDM by just saying scrambling. He is also super skilled on the ground. He just prefers to box. Like, look at how he was against the cage and just judo throws Gilbert, then into a knee. Gilbert is doing fine in the stand-up, but he looks kinda desperate. He's unleashing all of his weapons without any sort of clever setup, where his game plan is probably to rely on his experience as the older fighter and really mix up the martial arts. But JDM's boxing is just too crisp. He's just calmly shutting down everything Gilbert is dishing out. Round 2 begins and Gilbert gets the takedown again. So far, he has a 100% rate of takedown success. But JDM is still making it super competitive on the ground though, making the judges only think the only significant thing was just landing the takedown. Gilbert did a smart move to land this rare elbow right into JDM's face. There's no elbows in boxing and JDM just ate it flush. But he's got a chin though. I don't think I've seen any UFC fight footage of JDM in trouble in the stand-up. And as I say that, Gilbert fakes low and throws a giant overhand. If it was a stronger fighter and JDM didn't have his hand over his chin, that might have been the KO right there. And Gilbert rides the momentum with a slick takedown and actually dominates this time on the ground for the last minute. Round 3 and Gilbert throws a high kick and JDM just catches it. Yes, he caught a high kick. And then with that small window of vulnerability, JDM fakes going low and springs back up with a southpaw lead hook to the face. And he unleashed even more punches. And this was the beginning of the end. Gilbert panic wrestles and actually gets something going for a solid minute, but they get up for a split second and out of nowhere JDM throws a knee. The timing was perfect, where it wasn't enough for Gilbert to think JDM was grounded enough from the get-up to throw anything. Our first finish in this video.
The welterweight coming up, we have Gilbert Burns. This one hurt me because I love Gilbert.
Me too.
Gilbert's number 4. He's fighting 11th ranked Della and Della. I felt like Della was losing the entire fight.
He was, 100%.
And Burns had it.
Yep, Burns had the fight. He was doing a good job of dictating where the fight went. He took his back, had body triangles, out-grappled him, out-pointed him. So Burns was winning the fight. Unfortunately, I think it was the 3rd round. He got into a flurry. Jack got out from the bottom because he like rolled off the fence. And as they were standing up, you could tell Burns was a little bit winded because he's like having to control this guy. And when he's winded like that, he wants to go back to what was winning in the fight. So he like dives in for a shot, and Jack just throws a perfectly timed knee. I mean, I don't even think he saw the shot coming. I think he just knew that that's what he needed to do because he's probably going to get taken down again, you know? And unfortunately just caught Burns in, you know, the wrong place, the wrong time.
Just to recap the other stuff that happened for March 2024, the breakout fighter was Steve Erceg with the specific KO where he was put into the spotlight of the flyweight division. That's got to be one of the most iconic textbook 1-2-3s in the modern UFC era. The submission of the month was Fernando versus Lewis with a guillotine. And the KO of the month was Vinicius Oliveira, who KO'd Bernardo. Other worthy mentions during this month was Dustin Poirier versus BSD and Song Yadong versus Peter Yan. God, I just hate how I set up this video. I feel like I can make this video 5 hours long. It just feels so wrong just saying Poirier versus BSD and Song Yadong versus Peter Yan in one sentence without any sort of, you know, comment or breakdown. You know? Oh well, fuck it. We move on. Zhang Weili versus Yan Xiaonan. Yes, the month of UFC 300. Still looking back around 1.5 years later, this was still one of the best pay-per-views I've experienced in a long time. I think almost every fighter in that card was an ex-champion at some point, but the fight of the month belonged to Zhang Weili versus Yan Xiaonan. Why? I have no fucking clue. It's still a very good fight, but there were so many bangers this month and this pay-per-view alone, so I'm just going to guess this was just the most competitive. But also, not really? Let's just dive into the fight. Weili comes in being a very, very big favorite, and she comes in with a very good lead kick. Very good lead kicks, may I add. And she loves to do hooks when the opponent gets sick of the rangy leg kicks as well. But Xiaonan does something crazy. She tanks some of the hooks, clinches, and then does some crazy DDP takedown. The weird part was also she just lets Weili get up as well. She folded under no pressure. She was actually dominant too, looking like she nearly got side control. But I don't blame her deciding to do this and just go to stand up. At 2 minutes left on the clock, Yan darts in on Weili, circling with a crisp 2-3. And got the flash knockdown as well. Okay, so the fact that this fight is 25 minutes, each round being 5 minutes, I will try to break down something for each round so I don't actually bore you guys with every single play and then you guys are just bored to death. Especially trying to avoid copyright as well, there's just too much screenshotting. So in the last 20 seconds, Weili secured the round by choking out Yan with a rear naked choke.
1 second to go. Wow! She was out. She was out. Oh my God, she was out. She got back to her feet, which means the fight will continue. Oh my God, she was out. She was out. She was out.
Oh my goodness, as time went on, they've got to get some water in her face right.
Round 2 begins and Weili sees the way to victory. She just dominates on the ground, and when I say dominate, that's not an exaggeration. She was having the offensive position most of the round. It was enough to basically warrant a 10-8. And it was actually a 10-8 round unanimously amongst all the judges. So a huge lead for the champion. Round 3 begins and you would think Yan has completely given up mentally. But no. She timed the boxing combination when Weili was going to do a leg kick and she got the flash knockdown. Yan still kept it competitive in the last moments of round 3 and the judges actually gave it to her. But sadly, the commentary was correct. Yan needed a finish badly, and the chances were fading the longer the fight went. The opportunity never came, even though she pushed as far as any human can. The winner ended up being Weili. So let's look at the monthly report. Kayla Harrison was the breakout athlete when she got the win in UFC 300. Possible future champion, and me obviously dating the video now. Submission of the month was Figgy when he submitted Cody Garbrandt in the first fight of the UFC 300 card. And the honorable mentions of every single category award for this month was basically every other fight in that UFC 300 card. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but what else in April actually topped UFC 300? Let's be real. Alexandre Pantoja versus Steve Erceg. So the young and strong Steve Erceg versus the veteran Pantoja. Pantoja cleared basically the top contenders like 3 times now, so it is weird, but also a tiny bit warranted as well to see a top, basically 10th ranked fighter get the title shot. Just before this matchup, Steve KO'd his opponent out cold, which is extremely rare in the flyweight division. So the matchmakers wanted to spice up the division, seeing if this young guy can become champion and a new pool of matchups can finally be created. So let's begin with the fight. Pantoja always blitzing like the opponent owes him frickin' money. It's a battle of the unstoppable force versus the immovable object. But in this case, the unstoppable KO power of Erceg at the time versus the immovable chin of Pantoja. Erceg is doing good creating angles and pushing in combinations, but Pantoja just has more weapons and variety. He can just tank it and go for a takedown and basically shut down Erceg mentally. Round 2 and Erceg got Pantoja good with a 2 and even an elbow. And counters so many times, but Pantoja just kept going and got the takedown. And the same thing happens again in round 3. But worse, Pantoja got cut on top of his head, and it hurt so bad he actually needed to check and address his skull, because he probably thought his skull was poking out. End of round 3, and that's basically where the tide shifts now. Erceg has never done a 5-round fight before, and it really shows. He seems to be more tired, obviously, but he also looks very frustrated. Pantoja is just so tanky. Nothing seems to look like it's working, so he loses confidence and experiments, to try to get the finish or, do something that will be more dominant than his original game plan.
Erceg with a jab.
Erceg goes to another takedown. He goes to another takedown and gets reversed. And that is where the inexperience comes into play.
Yeah, so takedowns probably wasn't the best idea, but what can you do when you're in the octagon and you are so brain damaged and tired? Your fight IQ is like 10% of how it was in round 1. So I can't blame him too much, and obviously the inexperience.
By unanimous decision, and still!
Esteban knocked out McKinney, and that was the KO of the month, and Angela Hill versus Luana was the submission of the month. Yeah, May was kinda dry, so that's basically all I have for the recap. Diego Lopes versus Dan Ige. Yes, this entry is a bit weird because of how it was set up. So the fight was meant to be Diego Lopes versus Brian Ortega, but Ortega pulled out in the last minute. And when I say last minute, I'm talking about, well, I'm a bit exaggerating a little bit, but it was still 10 hours notice. During that fight week, he just felt really weak and somewhat unmotivated, almost knowing he wasn't going to fight on Saturday night.
It's in the war now. You guys are going to get a war, man. Let's do this.
That's it? All right, that's all we need to hear. Good luck to you, sir.
Brian Ortega is out of the co-main event against Diego Lopes. He had a fever.
So with only 6 hours left, Dan Ige stepped in to save the match. So before we dive into the fight, I just want to show respect to Dan Ige for even doing this. I feel like he has nothing to really gain, for his legacy at least. I don't doubt he's got a huge frickin' paycheck for entering the cage that day. A lot of people would think, why is this fight of the month? It was because the fight was actually competitive. For MMA math standards, Diego would have destroyed Dan Ige, but I think there's more reasons to think about, specifically the situations we were dealt with. Dan Ige is known for having a good chin already, so he probably won't get KO'd by Lopes, and they are also fighting at catchweight, so he's not fighting in the cage as some sort of, some middleweight Alex Pereira skeleton looking motherfucker, so that's good. And because the fight was so short notice, Diego has no study on Ige. He probably wants to take it slow with no risks involved because he studied basically nothing on Ige. So that being a decision fight and somewhat competitive despite the MMA math. Diego for the first round was just berserking. He is good because no matter who it is, if he can clinch an uppercut, then it might be, he might be on easy street anyway. But Dan took it well and even survived the submission threat in the last minute of the round. This is another Pantoja versus Erceg type of fight. Most of the first minutes of round 2 was a battle of closing distance. It was a bunch of punches and low kicks and seeing who can catch someone. Then Ige decides to switch it up with a Leon Edwards special, fake 2 to a head kick, which would have KO'd Diego if he just had more confidence into the actual combination.
And then has to weigh in today.
At least that's what I think. Because it connected, but Diego just catches it and turns it into a takedown and gets side control. For the rest of the round, Diego just dominates by taking his back and takes his time just pummeling and looking for submissions. Round 3 begins, and I think this is where things get competitive, and basically this is when the Fight of the Month reward began.
Very good job by Ige. Look at this. Fantastic.
Lopes is getting tired. Lopes is getting very tired.
He just looked up at the clock. Ige saw it too.
Yes, a berserker like Diego would not have any more cardio and will start to adrenaline dump in the third when he was basically attempting submissions and throwing KO level strikes back to back. Dan Ige definitely won round 3 where he actually won against the ground game and also got Diego really good a few times with his straight punches.
For the winner by unanimous decision, Diego Lopes!
Now let's do a quick recap of this month. Overall, a lot more exciting than May. Our breakout fighter was Peyton Talbot. He got the 19-second KO that month. Submission of the month was Felipe Lima when he choked out Muhammad Nailov with a rear naked choke. And who can forget the KO of the month? Alex Pereira versus Yeri 2. And despite all this, guess what fight only got an honorable mention? Yep, if you can remember, Makhachev versus Poirier happened in June. It wasn't submission of the month or fight of the month. I personally think it was fight of the month instead of this Lopes fight, but I could be wrong. I don't want to dive deep and go off track and just analyze a completely off topic, fight. So, we're moving on. Jean Silva versus Drew Dober. Just to save a lot of time and also plugging in another video of mine, I'm just going to insert my breakdown of this fight that I made a while back. The original video was talking about all of the fights of the fighting nerds. So check that out after if you want a free ticket to High Fight IQ. Drew Dober coming at the age of 35. So you know where this is going. But Drew came in very good at the start with a perfect body kick. Good range and everything. Jean was definitely shocked by the power of the lightweight. Yeah, Jean wanted to come back quick, so he chose to fight in lightweight because he's a psychopath. Jean also never really initiates on the ground. What you've noticed so far is that he loves to throw and makes the opponent get up if he's knocked them down. So Jean made a statement where he literally just tossed Drew to the side there. He's got strength too, not just power. Jean has the upper edge in the exchanges and won the first round, also leaving Dober with a bloody face. I'm not gonna lie, I've been enjoying the second round so much, I forgot I'm making a freaking video about it. This fight is the perfect example of strength versus power. Drew Dober, he looks so much slower, but if he got one good lick in, it makes Jean flinch a bit. But Jean, most of the time, has so much speed and power, he cuts him with a hook so easily. Jean is also so good fighting on the back foot. He clips so many people when they come in. But Drew this time went for a Superman punch that got Jean's respect. I'm not gonna lie, this fight is so underrated. Jean literally moved up a weight class and no one seemed to appreciate it. Also, we gotta appreciate that spinning elbow. When you're in southpaw or just an open stance, when you step in for the jab, your foot would want to step outside the opponent's lead leg. Jean baited this by stepping in more with his lead leg, making the jab look more appealing. So for a bloody Dober, this could be easy money for a boxing combination. Little did he know, Jean made him step into the perfect position and peak distance for a spinning elbow. Yes, I know, nerdy as fuck analysis, but look at the YouTube title. Yeah, exactly, shut up. And coming into the third, the spinning elbows don't stop and the doctor's stoppage happened. Yeah, I might have to censor that. This fight showed so much character for Jean Silva. You can't hate this guy. He's always showed charisma and a fun attitude in his fights. He respects them too. This fight specifically reminded him of his late brother. I mean, how can you hate this guy? So let's look at the monthly report to see what else happened during that month. The breakout fighter was Belal Muhammad when he became the welterweight champion. Fair enough. That is basically the definition of a breakout fighter, so props to Belal. Submission of the month was Paddy Pimblett when he fought King Green when he slipped him once he decided to go for a takedown against the jiu-jitsu specialist. Jackson versus Blackshear was the KO of the month where he got KO'd in the first 18 seconds of the fight.
Watch the straight punches of Jackson. I mean, they're just lightning, like straight down the pike.
Dominic Commentary Cruz strikes again. Dan Hooker versus Matthias Gamrot. Dan Hooker coming into this fight as a pretty moderate underdog, and to be fair, Gamrot is a good fighter, only losing to Darush and some guy half a decade ago. Not to mention his ground game skills against the not so good at the ground game Dan Hooker. So it makes sense for him to be, the underdog. I also feel like the matchmakers just needed a fight with Dan Hooker because of the event. So it wasn't really tailored and good fight matchmaking. It was more like event matchmaking, if you know what I'm talking about, because Kai Kara France, Israel Adesanya, and Dan Hooker in one card would just be a guaranteed banger for the Oceania region. So the fight begins, and Dan Hooker comes in with a new game plan. Well, sort of. The new blonde, tatted up Dan Hooker has been a transformation for him visually and also as a fighter. I've never seen him switch stances this much before in 1 minute. And he seems to be more active in his footwork, probably being more proactive about the takedowns of Gamrot. Dan Hooker is working on the legs and body of Gamrot to future-proof himself in the later rounds. Very good investment. But here comes the weird part. Dan goes for a 1-1-2, but Gamrot throws this weird jab that looks like the Usman double punch and does a flash knockdown. You can tell Gamrot was just throwing his hands down because, Dan's head was low and he might want to take him down. But the timing was so oddly perfect where it rattled Dan's brain and he got the flash knockdown. Most of the round, Gamrot was winning because of the ground game. But Dan just had enough cardio and experience to get up from them. Because it was still round 1 and out of nowhere, Dan gritted his teeth and said, "Fuck it, I'm swinging," and did 3 back-to-back hooks and dropped Gamrot against the cage.
Yep. He's one of the toughest guys in this. Oh, I heard a bad hook for Dan Hooker now.
Gamrot's hurt.
Gamrot hurt.
We reached round 2 and Gamrot is doing what he does best and wrestles. But it doesn't last as long as we thought because he actually gets tired from wrestling. So there are times where Gamrot is winning, but he's willing to let go just to recover. Yes, he's willing to go to the stand-up just because wrestling Dan Hooker was just that much more tiring. And that's when Dan Hooker just comes from the shadows and gets his stand-up, fight game momentum going once again. Dan's momentum is so strong, he even gets submission attempts going as well. Round 3 kind of tells the same story where Gamrot just needs to drain out the time and look like he's winning the fight, so the judges think he actually won. But Dan's pressure is too much and he is slowly defending the takedowns each time and getting closer to overwrite Gamrot's output, which is what was making Gamrot win.
By split decision, Dan the Hangman.
So let's get to the monthly report now. The breakout fighter was Michael Morales, who remains undefeated by finishing Neil Magny. Definitely a super skilled welterweight prospect. Welterweight is becoming one of the most stacked divisions. Yusuf versus Allens was the submission of the month, where it was a rear naked choke. And Wang Kong versus Victoria was the KO of the month, probably riding that high that, Wang Kong is an elite striker in women's MMA. But sadly, she is now defeated and might need to take the long route to be in contention. Honorable mention is Umar Nurmagomedov versus Corey Sandhagen, where that was also a very good fight during that month. Esteban Ribovics versus Daniel Zellhuber. I apologize if I said that wrong. Now, when I say fight of the month and 2024 in the same sentence, a lot of UFC fans instantly have this fight pop up in their heads. Such an underrated fight, and it just deserves all of the attention. Most of the first moments of the fight is, as usual, using low-risk strikes and getting the range and timing correctly. And at that moment, Ribo goes for a great switch overhand that got Daniel good, and then followed it up with a forward low kick. After that, it woke Daniel up. He started to circle out more, frame out more, and started to lunge in with the knees and straight punches just to discourage the speed of Ribo. Round 2 begins and they are throwing more. Just to reiterate, these screenshots will never do it justice. I apologize. If you think you could watch these kinds of videos with the actual footage in the background, I could make some sort of Patreon with the intended vision for these videos, but comment down if you are interested in supporting that sort of thing. Pace of these guys are so insane, I just can't break down everything, especially if I need to screenshot everything as well. But the kickboxing is crisp as fuck from both sides. Round 3 begins and Daniel found it too predictable now. Ribo darts in once again with that same combo, but gets countered with a nasty elbow that knocked him down briefly. But he comes back for revenge with a crazy uppercut overhand combo. Daniel has enough time to recover and throws back, but sadly, it wasn't enough to change the narrative and the flow of the fight.
By split decision, Esteban
Let's recap this month, starting with our breakout fighter, Bryan Battle, who really showed himself in the spotlight with his trash talk and solidifying his new persona as the Butcher. The submission of the month was Silva versus Jasmine, and the KO was Zhang versus Matt Favela. Alex Pereira versus Khalil Rountree. Looking back, the UFC thought they were low-key about it. They really needed to pad out Alex's title reign just in case Ankalaev does win and they can say he still had a good run. Which he still did have a good run. Yeah, it sounds like I'm being a dick, but you can tell they really wanted to do that. And also extremely conveniently and smartly, Rountree, who is ranked 8th, said he just wants to fight Alex Pereira.
The only thing that I want to do is fight Alex Pereira. I know that I have other people that I need to possibly fight, but I think that that's a fight that the fans would want to see. I think that from what I've seen, the fans would love to see that fight.
Not go for the belt, fight the kickboxer Alex Pereira. So the UFC will take that to heart. And yes, Dana and the matchmakers did that straight away. I want to credit Mr. Highlights for this amazing crowd cam footage. He is doing God's work, and I'm sure you guys are a little bit tired of screenshots. So you can take a break and see this glory in motion. Khalil Rountree comes in very twitchy and throws in some good punches to close the distance. He wants to establish that he can fight back, and Alex can't get his pressure going early. It's risky, but Khalil being shorter, faster, and also southpaw is enough to make Pereira scared of that game plan. But Alex came into this fight a lot better than his last couple of fights, mainly because he knows he's never ever going to worry about the takedowns today. So Alex learned new things coming into this fight. Nothing is more scarier than a 6'4" monster. Than a 6-foot monster that can create fucking angles. He just circles out so fast and also outside calf kicks so fast and powerful as well. Khalil is having a hard time to worry about being defensive or fully commit to counter and be offensive heavy. You can see how Khalil is too short that he misses some shots. But later on in the fight, you can also say in another perspective that Alex is too tall and he misses some shots as well. You can see Khalil is the more proactive one, where he knows that if he's going to win, it will need to be in the first 3 rounds. That speed and twitchiness will deteriorate so fast. That's got to be one of the most delayed reactions from a fucking chick I've seen in my life. But that was a good exchange. just showing how much more boxing heavy Alex came into the fight. Alex is doing a good job though right now. He's just conserving his energy, seeing reads, and playing a lot with his pressure and feints. It will accumulate later on into the fight, and he's the type of fighter to not really give a shit about the scorecards. He likes to treat fights as one big story instead of 5 small ones. The only thing about Khalil is that he gives too much respect. I know he wants to keep it on the feet, but you can make it a little bit dirty. I feel like that counter hook from a missed question mark kick would have been a great opportunity to set a new tide. Khalil could have unleashed a flurry of strikes to establish something, or at that window of opportunity, just throw some crazy lunging elbow, and then worst case scenario, you're in the clinch. But he resets and backs up, which there's a small chance that might have been the smart move. I'm not too sure. Alex's pressure and resume does that to people. And let's not forget my favorite moment in the fight. It was like destiny. Open stance main event fight in Salt Lake City, and it all ends with a fake 2 head kick. Except for this one. And pretty much after that exchange, Khalil was like, who the fuck am I fighting right now? The final boss of life? And then all of his courage just went away. Well, I shouldn't say courage. All of his confidence went away, and all that was left was just pure courage. Round 3, and I just want to take some time to slow down this footage here. Can we just appreciate Pereira's lead question mark kick here? He went from hand fighting to just a flick of the hip, bam, right on the head. It was the perfect hip rotation to fly over Khalil's cheek and land right on his head. I don't know, these breakdowns are so striking biased, but fuck it, I don't care anymore. This is where it gets a little bit rough for Khalil now. His fight IQ is still there, but he's just so tired and worn out coming into round 3. So after Khalil introduces a cool play, Alex just responds back with the same move, but better and stronger, which discourages Khalil. And this is when Alex's flow state begins. It's like that flying knee activated his domain expansion or some shit, because Khalil just randomly becomes very sloppy after this. And coming into round 4, Alex just kills Khalil. Alex's level of striking is very hands down. He likes to see everything, so that's why. And when he strikes from when his hands are down already, the opponent will be too slow to read it. So if you pair that with the flow state, it's almost unstoppable. And all it took was the unexpected, untensed body shot to settle the fight. The textbook definition of being folded. He cramped up so bad, I can already see the blood filling up his bladder for the next few months. I was having trouble what music was playing in my head during that final round when I was first watching this fight. It was just total domination on the feet. I almost forgot about the monthly report because I feel like any other fight during this month just felt irrelevant. But I was wrong. So diving in, the breakout fighter is Anthony Hernandez, who stopped Michel Pereira's crazy winning streak. Anthony is kind of overlooked, being in the top 10 in the middleweight division and having kind of a good style. Submission of the month was when Chimaev destroyed Whittaker's jaw with that face crank. And the KO of the month was Ilya when he solidified his villain status by TKOing Max Holloway. So that month was actually super stacked. So you know what that means. The next month is going to be straight up ass. Erin Blanchfield versus Rose Namajunas. I don't know about this one, boys. I feel like we can take a break here. I don't want to bore you as much as I have already, so I won't dive too deep into this. Not like there was, a gold mine here to begin with, but let's switch it up. Let's see what the monthly recap says first. We had Carlos Prates KO Neil Magny and cemented his 3rd KO in 2024. Jim Miller submitted Damon Jackson, and let's not forget the Chinese doctor that slept her opponent out cold. Brandon Moreno versus Albazi happened this month as well. And for me personally, I feel like Mauricio Rufy versus James Lerntop was the fight of the night. So Erin Blanchfield versus Rose Namajunas was a good fight, but I need to keep this video under an hour, so there's going to be some trimming here. The fight was competitive and it was good. And there was a lot of people saying it was a robbery that Rose should have won. Movsar Evloev versus Aljamain Sterling. People have been saying this fight is boring, but a fight between these two grapplers, it was actually very exciting. I don't know what other people have been talking about, but I will also be humble in saying that I don't know any technical things about the ground game, so sadly you'll see this from a very, very casual perspective and a very casual recap, but I know there are a ton of video analyses on this fight on YouTube, so you can search that. I gotta give it to Aljo. I think Evloev was not expecting Aljo to be this athletic. It's one thing to get the upper hand, and it's another to just feel the strength of a position or transition. So Aljo was kind of leading the dance in the first round, but Evloev had something up his sleeve to reverse it. So it was a slight win for Aljo for round 1. Round 2, and we see the difference in the stand-up and the tide of the fight. Evloev is slowly showcasing himself as the better fighter. And the same happens for round 3, where he gets the dominant position and cancels out any sort of reversal Aljo tried to do. So at the very end of the fight, it was a unanimous decision win for Evloev.
By unanimous decision,
punch, and then I was trying to get my hand. I was like, "What the? How you was holding?"
I didn't take your glove.
No, I couldn't. I couldn't tell. I was just like
Greg and Roman wrestling, bro.
Yeah. So I was like, why can't I get my hand out to throw some punches?
So let's look at the report for the last month of 2024. The breakout fighter was Hawking Buckley, who defeated Colby Covington, solidifying himself as a top welterweight fighter. Submission of the month was Alexandre Pantoja, who put Kaya Sakura to sleep with a rear naked choke. I nearly said tear naked choke, which would have been just the same. And the KO of December was Cub Swanson when he knocked out Billy.